We represent a diverse membership and an even more diverse political landscape. We're continuing to see a wind down here in the fourth quarter of 2020 with reports coming in from our employers that indicate a substantial decline in workforce needs. Worse yet are the potential projections for 2021 with a reduction in construction starts down 25%. There's a huge concern regarding our future. Our goal continues to be to protect and advance the interest of workers. Our team has been working tirelessly to provide information to our members regarding everything from the changing of the unemployment benefits to providing continuing education regarding safe work practices during this COVID-19 pandemic. And recently, moving into full action to assist our members impacted with the recent derecho storm that ripped here through the Midwest. But brothers and sisters, there's really only so much we can do when government officials continue to undercut our efforts. We've seen OSHA absent in issuing mandatory enforceable guidelines. But safety is much more than a physical safety. It's also about our financial safety and security. It's an inclusive subject that underscores the need to elect people who put workers first. Politicians that protect our neighbors, not the institutions that exploit them. This isn't about party loyalty. We shouldn't be approaching politics like choosing a favorite football team on Sunday. And we've been working hard with Democrats, Republicans, and independents for years. It's about the impact on working people and what our elected officials do, not what they say in 30-second sound bites. Our goal is to have a seat at the table so we can have an opportunity to advocate for workers. We know when we have that seat at the table, we've seen legislation that's helped workers. When we're frozen out or denied that seat, we've seen that not only legislation's passed that's catastrophic to workers, but our union. And brothers and sisters, this isn't a soundbite. We've seen it play out right here in District Council 81. And for example, our organizing department working hand in hand with our international and our community partners to elect a pro-labor city council in Denver, which has led to an increase in the minimum wage in Denver. It's also supported and assisted in addressing wage theft by preparing the groundwork for wage bond legislation. Wage bond legislation that will provide protection for workers and accountability for employers. Wage theft and misclassification, brothers and sisters, not only hurts the individual workers, but it gives the companies an unfair advantage over our signatory contractors. On a state level in Colorado, we've seen that our support of labor-friendly candidates as legislators has resulted in the passage of paid sick leave, legislation to provide collective bargaining rights to our public sector workers, an expansion and passage of a quality apprenticeship bill, and workers' compensation due to employees infected with COVID-19 in the workplace. On the federal level, we continue to work with our endorsed candidates like former Governor Hickenlooper in a Tier 1 state to ensure that we have a seat at the table to educate our elected officials on the IUPAT's platform, which calls for investment in worker-driven retirement plans and investment in the America's infrastructure. Now, in contrast, what we've seen in Colorado, in Iowa, with the Republican-controlled legislature, is we've seen collective bargaining agreement rights stripped from 100,000 public sector employees, including our very own PP&E brothers and sisters right here in Iowa. They've removed the option to bargain over the majority of topics that they previously negotiated, things like insurance, leave, layoff procedures, basically leaving them with the ability to bargain over wages only. Not only were the public sector bargaining rights stripped, the deck was stacked against our public sector brothers and sisters, requiring recertification elections in the last year of every existing contract, paving the way for not having a vote means a no vote. Even against this stacked deck, brothers and sisters, we've had an overwhelming success with recertification of our public sector units. Since 2017, almost 90%. This message sent a message of solidarity and pride of union membership. It allowed for continued coverage for workers in units including law enforcement, school employees, and road workers. But brothers and sisters, it also resulted in a tremendous loss in membership. So these negative policies have impacted us in ways that is a page right out of what we've seen happen up in Wisconsin. In addition to that, workers' compensation was gutted. They removed one of the most frequently payouts for injured body parts that play a predominant role in our organization: our shoulders, our knees, and our backs. They took away our right to benefits for loss of earning capacity as a result of a shoulder injury. Look, brothers and sisters, the proof is in what's been passed at the local and state and federal levels. Don't underestimate the importance of support and voting for labor-friendly candidates. These candidates get to vote on topics that have an impact on your daily lives. I want to take a moment and thank General President Rigmaiden and General Vice President Williams for hosting tonight's event and affording us the opportunity to have the difficult conversations that are going to make a difference this election. And with that, I'd like to pass it over to Brother Joe Ashdale.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, thank you. Thanks everyone for joining us tonight. So when the COVID epidemic hit, we were running full employment. Sometime in March, we got the word that everything was shut down. And within a couple of weeks, we went from full employment to close to 85% unemployment. Terrible times, a lot of uncertainty, all new protocols, all new things, members, families being stricken with COVID, and how do we deal with all that? So we struggled through like everyone else did. We stuck together. By June, we had probably 100% employment. So as of right now, we're pretty good. We're running about 95% employment. But today is not my concern, not our concern. We're very concerned of what 2021 is going to look like, as well as 2022. In Philly, the office buildings and tenant space has about an 80% vacancy. The owners of these buildings tell us that they don't expect that to climb till everybody's comfortable with the vaccine. The 80% that are not in these buildings are either working from home or have been furloughed. Philly has a lot of eds and meds, hospitals and universities and colleges, and we have schools that are empty. And these are schools that we maintain and we paint and look forward to these jobs to keep our families going. So there's a lot of concern about what the future looks like. Probably the toughest decision we're trying to get through now is do we bring any apprentices in? What's it going to look like in 3 years? Is it going to be a job for an apprentice in 3 years, 4 years, and so forth? So there's a lot of anxiety about the future. But fortunately, in Philly, we have a pretty good backstop. We have a mayor who is not only labor friendly, he's 100% building trades friendly. He's a guy that has been in for about a term and a half now. He understands the value of what we do, but he also just doesn't give us things. He asks for things, and he asks us to reach back into the community, to help people, to fix windows, to help the school kids, to paint schools, and we do it. He stopped me one time and said, I just went to a job fair where somebody had just got released from prison and needed a job, and a month later I sent him a picture of that guy working on the Comcast building. So we kind of work together. He hasn't forgot where he came from. 200, you heard Kenny mention earlier, over 200 project labor agreements. So that sounds great. What's that mean? That's over $5 billion, would it be? $5 billion worth of new construction to keep us going through these times. When he first got in, he went out on the limb and was made Philly one of the first cities in the country to have a soda tax. And there was a lot of people against it. The food industry, beverage industry was against it. But it passed through Friends in Council, and that money is used to help pre-K students, as well as fix up, repair, and renovate parks, recreation centers, libraries, and community centers in the city of Philadelphia. Over $400 million of PLA work and union construction. So you may have heard the president say something recently that bad things happen in Philadelphia. Well, I'm here to tell you that good things happen in Philadelphia, and it's happened because of one badass guy. Okay, so at this point, I'd like to introduce our mayor, Jim Kenny, and my friend.
Very good. Good. What's going on? Mayor Kenny, you're going to have to take yourself off mute. Good call.
Mayor, you're on mute.
I guess he's not.
Maybe he's turned his speaker down.
I mean,
Wow.
you might have to unmute him because somebody asked me to unmute.
While we're waiting to hear from Mayor Kenny and figure out what the,
See if
what
the
the
host can
issue.
unmute, see if the host can unmute him. Because the host asked me to unmute and I think that was aimed at the mayor.
It's not allowing us on this end.
Yeah, we're gonna segue and hopefully we can figure it out and figure out what's going on with Mayor Kenny's Zoom feed. In the meantime, we're gonna introduce Congressman Bobby Scott, the chairman of the House Education and Labor Committee. Bobby Scott has been a true fighter for organized labor in Washington, D.C., and has really led the cause and led the charge that this United States Congress, led by Speaker Pelosi, has been doing to help working people. Congressman Scott, thank you so much for joining us. And if you can, give us a little bit of a lay of the land of what's been happening during this pandemic and what you guys have done, which has been probably the most pro-worker friendly Speaker of the House, Democratic leadership team that we can remember in generations. Thank you, Bobby Scott, for joining us.
Well, thank you very much. And it's certainly a pleasure to be with IUPAT and hard workers. And thank you so much for the invitation. Yeah, we've been working hard for workers. We started off raising the minimum wage. There was a study that showed that a full-time minimum wage worker could not afford a modest 2-bedroom apartment in any county in the United States of America.
No.
Hold on. I didn't say San Francisco and Manhattan. No county in the United States full-time minimum wage worker. You know that's not right. So we voted to gradually raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. We got a veto threat for that, but next year we're going to have a different situation, and we're going to be able to pass that bill. We've been created jobs. Yes, the Moving America Forward Act that includes school construction. That's so important now because ventilation has been identified as an important element of school safety, opening school safely, and too many of our schools have HVAC systems that are in disrepair. And so we create a lot of jobs, a lot more jobs. Just the school construction part creates a lot more jobs than the $1.9 trillion tax cut, where 80% of the benefits went to the top 1% in corporations. We also passed in the House the Protecting Your Right to Organize, the PRO Act, Protecting the Right to Organize Act. That recognizes the fact that union members make higher wages, get better benefits, and safer working conditions. They also get equal pay for equal work. There's a lot of problems with pay disparities around the world. No disparities in a union contract. You get equal pay for equal work. Union memberships even help non-unions because they can non-union members because they can set up and threaten their employer that they're going to get up and leave and get a good union job unless they get a raise. So even non-union members benefit. And so we passed the PRO Act, which makes critical reforms in the National Labor Relations Act by creating meaningful civil penalties when there's an unfair labor practice, ends misclassifications, makes sure that everybody pays their fair share of the cost of representation, and make sure that you can join a union without the employer interference. The right to join a union is a right. It ought not have to be a fight. And so we passed that, and of course that's facing a veto threat. But of course, on January 20th, we're going to have a different situation. Just last week, we passed the National Apprenticeship Act. We heard about apprenticeships. Well, we know that graduates of registered apprenticeships make an average of $70,000 a year. And we also know that about 7 million of the jobs that have been lost are going to be lost permanently. A lot of people have lost their jobs. About 7 million of them aren't going back to the jobs that they lost. And so we need to make sure that they have the job training, and we have about 1 million new opportunities in the National Apprenticeship Act of 2020 that passed, that was reported out of the committee, and we're going to pass that right after the election. We also passed the HEROES Act several months ago. It provided support for local and state government so they don't have to lay people off, support for education, support for housing so we don't have an epidemic of evictions right after the moratorium ends. We save the airlines and other businesses. We reinstate the $600 unemployment compensation for those that lose their jobs. And we also make OSHA finally come up with some enforceable standards. Right now, there are no enforceable standards promulgated by OSHA to protect people from COVID-19, notwithstanding what's happening in the healthcare industry, in nursing homes and prisons and meatpacking plants, no enforceable standards. And it's interesting to compare the Democratic attitude for those who are at risk of exposure to COVID-19 compared to the Republicans. What do Democrats want to do to protect and help the workers? First of all, we want to make sure, and we passed in the HEROES Act a directive of OSHA to come up with some enforceable standards. Then we have money for testing. If you're not doing testing, you don't know what's going on around you. There was a meatpacking plant where nobody was exhibiting any symptoms. They tested everybody. Hundreds of people tested positive. They didn't know. We want if you get sick on the job, you want to make that, while we have jurisdiction over as federal employees, workers' compensation. So you get your lost wages and your health care bills paid. If it's not a federal employee, you want to at least get your treatment. If you get hit with COVID-19 and in the hospital, you're going to be hit with a lot of copays and deductibles. We need to make sure that you get through COVID-19, no copays and deductible. And we want to make sure you have your insurance. Regrettably, in America, if you lose your job, you lose your insurance. We want to make sure that you get subsidies so you can keep your insurance under the COBRA Act. Or we want to make sure you can get into Obamacare with a special enrollment period and special subsidies for those that lost their jobs, and expand Medicaid in those areas that haven't expanded Medicaid. We want to expand paid leave. And we want to make sure that those who are working heroically in dangerous jobs get heroes pay. That's the attitude that Democrats have. Now tell me what Republicans want to do for workers in the same situation. Wrong. It's not nothing. It's less than nothing. They want to water down OSHA, and they want to remove the possibility that you might one day be able to sue your employer if they were negligent and you can prove their negligence caused you to be infected. They're going backwards. It's less than nothing. And these votes, this upcoming election is particularly important because of what they're doing to the Supreme Court. They have decided to do nothing to help people through the COVID-19. No housing, no state and local, no education, no save the airlines, nothing. But they do want to get back together to rush through a Supreme Court nominee so she can be on the bench right after the election when they're having a case that will consider whether or not the Affordable Care Act is constitutional. They want her on the bench so they can take away your health insurance. Nothing to help people get through the pandemic, but they have time to rush through. And it's extremely important that we have people in place, because the Republicans they've been accused of having no plan to replace if it's set aside. Actually, they do. They passed it in the House, and the CBO scored it. They said if their bill passed, the cost would go up 20% the first year, 20-some million fewer people would have insurance. Those with pre-existing conditions would start losing their protections. And because they don't have essential benefits required, the insurance you get will be worse than what you got. They passed it, and it's celebrated. So we know we can't count on them to do anything. But if we have the House and the Senate and the White House, whatever the Supreme Court does to it, we can come back and fix. If we don't, then we're in a mess, and they would have gotten away with taking away your health insurance. And that's why this election is so important. We have a difference in attitude about how they're going to treat workers. what they think of healthcare, what they think of COVID-19. And because of the voter registration and get out the vote and advocacy of unions like yours, I feel confident that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris will be in the White House. We will take over the Senate and we'll add to our positions in the House of Representatives, and we will be able to help union members and legislation that we've already shown we can pass in the House. We'll pass them through the House and the Senate and watch and have a celebration in the Rose Garden as the President of the United States signs those bills. So thank you so much for the opportunity to be here, and I'll be happy to answer questions, or you can go to Mayor Kenny, whatever you want to do.
Thank you, Congressman Scott. Always a fighter on behalf of working people in this country. And I think it's important before we turn it over to Mayor Kenny to understand that the things that Bobby Scott just spoke about have all been passed by the United States Congress. Every single piece of information that was just given to you has been passed by this Democratic-controlled United States House of Representatives leadership. And we thank you for all the work you're doing on behalf of working people. I believe we have Mayor Jim Kenny's feed fixed. Mayor Kenny, please.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Joe did a much better job introducing you, but the floor is yours. Thank you.
I heard the introduction. Thank you, Joe. It was like a eulogy. I'm glad I'm still alive. And I wish my mute button worked, because I hate following Congress people. It's hard. It's like following a preacher. But I want to take it down to the local level a little bit. I've known Joe Ash for almost 40 years, I think, around that amount of time. And sometimes I feel bad calling him about some things I need or we need for our city for help, because I call him so much. And every time I call him, it's as if I called him for the first time. It's just he doesn't flinch. And the story he told about that guy I met at the job fair who got out of jail, who had been a painter, had been a glazier years ago, and then wound up going away for 10 years, was really down and out. And when I saw that picture of that guy in his rig up on the scaffolding, it was just brought tears to my eyes to see what an organization like District Council 21 and the entire union nationally can do to change people's lives. Joe talked about PLAs. I have a saying: PLA every day. Every day should be a PLA, because that's the way you guarantee a couple things. People are trained to do their job safely and do it in the right way, on time and on budget. It also makes sure that we get our local share of taxes, because these guys who run these fly-by-night shops, they don't pay unemployment compensation, they don't pay workman's comp, they don't pay taxes, they don't get licenses or permits. So what we've done is we work together with the trades and our other service sector unions to make sure that people are authorized and trained to do the job they're supposed to do. The other issue with these non-union operations and these fly-by-night guys is they treat their employees horrible. Their employees get hurt on the job, they kick them to the curb, they have nothing for them. And they take advantage of undocumented immigrants and other folks who can't fight back. So I am really thrilled to be a strong union supporter. And it comes from my background in life. My dad was a union firefighter. My mom was in a newspaper guild. Siblings were in unions. My in-laws were in unions. And everything I had in my life, roof over my head, food on the table, education paid for, go to the Jersey Shore for a week every year. All of that had to do with the fact that my parents were protected and respected by unions. And I think that's the most important thing that we can do. Coming election, it's not only important for the union movement and for all of us. Our democracy is on the line. Our democracy is on the line. If you saw that tableau last night of that person standing on that balcony, ripping off that mask and basically giving everybody the finger by doing it, and think about the things that they're trying to do with the Justice Department. Everything that they're doing is just dismantling our democracy, and we have to send a strong message going back into this election. It's really, really, really important. And let me just tell you one other story about Joe in DC 21. We struggle with crime and violence in our city, and it's sad, and we're working on it every day. We had a situation up in North Philadelphia where it was a 12-hour standoff of bad guys in a building holding police officers hostage, having police officers outside, rounds and rounds and rounds of bullets being shot from the building into the homes of all the good people who lived on that street. And it was all a good bunch of people, hardworking people, may have some been poor, but they're good people. Joe and his crew went out one day and cleaned up the neighborhood, replaced all the windows, filled all the holes, spackled all the stuff that needed to be fixed. And those people and those folks in that neighborhood and that street felt like they were respected, even though they went through a 12-hour firefight on their own street, hiding under their beds and hiding in their basements. And that's the kind of stuff that Joe, the trades, and all of our other unions do. They care about people, they care about their members, but they also care about the people in the community. And if we can continue this relationship and get some new leadership in Washington and get some stuff done for a change instead of what we've been seeing, despite the efforts of Congressman Scott and others, just moving our country forward, getting infrastructure projects back online, and just doing things that make sense for working men and women and their children. If we can do that, this country will go in the right direction. But I will tell you, if you don't vote, you're disrespecting every person who fought in a war, who stood on a picket line, who fought for civil liberties, who were like John Lewis, conked on the head more times than he would ever wanted to stand up for his rights. And if we don't go to the polls and vote, we're disrespecting their memories, and we really don't deserve the democracy that we have. So let's go out and vote in this election. Make sure you're registered. And again, Joe, thank you personally for your friendship and for the stuff all the things that your folks have done for us in the city.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Mayor Kenny, for those words. And what this is all about, these Zoom meetings that we're sharing with everybody around the country, is to show everybody the significance that politics and government does impact our union, impact our lives. And this is about coming together as a union family and seeing the significant role that both the federal government plays and then also the local level, right. How important it is for us to be involved at every single level. Because going forward after Election Day, we go back to work organizing like we've never organized before, and we hold our elected officials accountable. And that's what the charge is. But first, we have to be union value voters. We have to go to the ballot box knowing our issues, knowing which candidates support our issues, and making sure we do not let ourselves get distracted. Like has been said, this election is so critical, and it's at a crossroad in our country on so many levels. How we're going to move forward economically, how we're going to socially heal a divided country, and how is our union going to play a role in growing that? And these town halls that we're doing are designed to bring us together as a union family. And now we're going to turn over to our Q&A and call on some of our union members. First, we have Kelly Morgan from District Council 77 who would like to ask a question. And Kelly, you'll probably have to unmute yourself as well. I'll skip over Kelly and call on Linda Overbay from District Council 16.
Hi, I'm Linda from District Council 16. Can you guys talk about how robust infrastructure funding, like the Moving Forward Act, is vital to true recovery for our members and for the whole country?
Thanks, Linda. And, Congressman Scott really touched on infrastructure and the need to get the Moving Forward Act passed. But Congressman Scott, I'm gonna flip this one your way. The difference between what we've seen in the two different infrastructure proposals is the difference between the bill that's been passed and supported by Vice President Biden versus the way the Republicans like to talk about infrastructure. What we see in the Republican packages is basically just one big tax break for the rich, and we see our infrastructure becoming more and more privatized. Whereas under the Moving Forward Act, we see way more direct government intervention. And can you talk about the reason why prevailing wages and Davis-Bacon is so important to how we build America's infrastructure?
Well, when you're building infrastructure, if you don't have Davis-Bacon, all you're doing is just putting downward pressure on wages and getting people to low bid based on low wages. If you are sure to be paying prevailing wage, then the bidding is on who can do the best job. There are a lot of things that union members have an interest in. I just want to make sure I mention healthcare. Because you belong to a union, you're able to negotiate good health benefits. But one of the problems is if these guys get their way and 20-some million people fewer are insured, that's 20-some million people that will be going to the hospital and not paying. Guess who pays? They have a name for it. It's called cost shifting. When we started with Obamacare, about $1,000 on every policy was cost shifting from indigent care from people who didn't have insurance, who got sick and had to go to the hospital. Well, if we allow these people to take the healthcare away from 20 million people, healthcare costs in the House bill will go up 20%. A lot more people lose their healthcare, and the benefits that you have negotiated are going to be more expensive. And I can tell you that the next negotiation, the employers will make you help pay for it. So everybody has an interest in everybody being insured, and everybody has an interest in the projects that are selected being selected from the democratic perspective. That is, the democratic process decides where the roads are, not who can pay for the road to come his way and get government subsidies for it. I think it's extremely important that we be fair and the roads go where they're needed, not where a few businessmen can afford to be benefiting from the development.
Pedro.
Thank you, Congressman. Great answer to the question. Next, I'm going to call on Armanda Ellis from District Council 82.
Hi, I'm here.
Thanks,
Can you hear
Armanda.
me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
I kind of went out. I was in the store, so I went out a little bit, so I missed the question, but go ahead for me.
Oh, no, it's up to you. You can ask a question.
Oh, I actually don't have any. I've been on every single call, so I feel like every call, even though I don't have a question, I still get on just to hear everything. So I don't have any, and I think that the calls are very informational, and that even if we don't have questions, we should get on because it helps with the questions we will have in the future. So
Thanks, Armanda. We're going to call on Pete Luna, District Council 88.
Hi, this is Pete Luna with District Council 88 out of Houston. Can you talk about how the PRO Act is desperately needed to give unions a fair shot to organize and to collectively bargain in this country?
Right now they've done surveys and right now the union actual membership is down in the private sector. Around 6 or 7% of the workers are in unions. Counting public unions, it might get as high as 10%. But they've done surveys and about half the workers or more would actually like to belong to a union. The problem is they can't join because it's not a right to join a union, it's a fight. Unfair labor practices, if you try to organize, there is essentially no real penalty for firing somebody for trying to organize a union. The PRO Act would allow meaningful sanctions. If you commit an unfair labor practice, you can get fined enough to make you not want to do it. Right now, the only sanction is you got to pay the worker back pay after you've been caught. Well, if the NLRB doesn't pursue it, you might not ever get compensation, or if you do, will be several months after the fact. Well, your mortgage and your rent's due this month. It's not due 3 months from now. And so all you have to do is fire 1 or 2 people and everybody else gets the message that you got caught organizing, you'll be fired. And so it eliminates that. It eliminates misclassification where they call people independent contractors rather than employees. That allows them to deny them health benefits and other benefits, overtime and everything else. And so there are a lot of reasons that the PRO Act the PRO Act gets the employer out of the situation where they can't force you into captive audience meetings and that kind of thing. And so those are the some of the things, and it also provides for a fair share. If somebody's sitting up in a workplace and benefits from the union paying accountants and lawyers to negotiate a better salary and negotiate a better work site, negotiate better benefits, and they get the benefits, they ought to pay for their fair share in those costs. Maybe not their share of the cost of a holiday party or a 4th of July cookout, we don't have to pay for that. But for the costs that are mandated by law that they benefit from, it's only fair that they pay, and the PRO Act would have them pay their fair share.
Thank you, Congressman. In addition to the things the Congressman spoke of, the PRO Act also repeals some of the most employer-friendly provisions of the Taft-Hartley Act, which for many on this call in the construction industry, we've seen a deterioration of solidarity amongst the trades, and supporting one another's picket lines has been increasingly more and more difficult as owners and general contractors, they do something which is they make us put up 2 gates. And under passage of the PRO Act, that would outlaw secondary boycotting, which allows for unions to come together and support each other's picket lines again, support each other's strikes, which is sorely needed in the labor movement. We've seen a deterioration of it. It's the reason why general contractors and owners establish those 2-gate systems, because we can't support each other anymore, and we're forced to go to work and not support our brothers and sisters from other trades. And that's really important. And that's something we're going to fight really hard for, and continue to fight hard for the passage of the PRO Act. You'll see a lot of that coming after November. It's going to be the thing that we fight for. And going forward, any congressional or senatorial candidate that wants the support of the IUPAT is going to first have to pledge to us that they support us in the PRO Act. Moving on, we got some questions from social, both on our social media feeds. And this question's more for us here as the union leadership. But why are members losing their benefits during this pandemic was asked by Bobby Haas on Facebook. And, you know, members are losing their benefits because their benefits are calculated on how many hours they work. Just like the congressman said, too many people have lost their benefits in this country because their employment has been slowed. The same thing has happened to our members. If our qualifying health care is based on a quarterly and you have to work 300 hours in that quarter and you didn't work and you didn't have banked hours, you're going to lose your health insurance. And that's another reason why we had Congressman Scott on this call. Congressman Scott fought hard in the passage of the HEROES Act to have COBRA relief for anybody who lost their benefits during this pandemic. That's the reason members are losing their benefits during this pandemic. There's also a real fear in our union about where our pension fund's going to be after this pandemic's over. And that's again why we had Congressman Scott on here. Congressman Scott fought hard to make sure that there was pension relief in the HEROES Act. And again, that bill was passed and it's sitting in the hands of the United States Senate right now. But our members losing their benefits, concerned about their pensions going forward, and concerned about their future work opportunities, hearing the things that you heard tonight from our elected officials should give you some hope as well, that we can rebuild this country and that we can respond to some of the things that we've been forced to go through during this pandemic. But it's important that we do so with elected officials that get it and understand our issues. And we're going to fight. You know, our union's going to continue to fight for every single hour for our membership that we can. But we got to do it together. Right. And it starts with this campaign. And Ken, I don't know if you want to jump in.
Brothers and sisters, look, the reports and comments that you've heard today are spot on. But here's the thing. If we're talking about the PRO Act, if we're talking about the HEROES Act, if we're talking about moving America forward, all three of those bills have come and they're festering in the Senate. They're just sitting there. This is the importance of you as a rank and file member who knows how to vote and vote for your interest here. If you talk about the HEROES Act, you're talking about healthcare, strong economic recovery, if you're talking about moving forward in America, you're absolutely talking about job opportunities for not only the members in our union, but working people across the country, whether it's nurses, whether it's building bridges, whether it's infrastructure, whether it's safe water. All of those things are in those bills. And when you have a congressman and a team led by Congressman Scott, those kinds of things can happen. This is the importance of us being on point, not just for the national elections, but for the local elections, for your local senator, for your local congressman, for your local anything. That's the importance of voting down that ballot and making sure that you vote for those who support your values. Secondly, not only having the values, make sure that you know that those folks in your community, your friends, your neighbors, they have the same struggles that we have. And we need to find out and make sure that we're all working together. That's the only way that we're going to prevail. It's not just the IUPAT. It's working families. It's not just the building trades. It's not just the AFL-CIO. It's all of us together as workers moving this thing forward. You've seen, there was another question I saw about the notion of the present administration being pro-union. That's a bunch of hooey. If you can look and see what they're doing with the various bills, whether it's the work that the Obama administration did, whether it's the things that we're trying to do, they're trying to gut pension plans. They're trying to gut safety. They're trying to gut healthcare. All you have to do is look at what their bills look like and vote on your interests. Vote on what's good for working families. That's what we got to do.
Yeah, Manuel Contreras on Facebook asked, is Trump for unions? And that he keeps hearing it from people that it's a yes, but is there any truth to it? And like Ken said, you can just stack up the two. Donald Trump came after our apprenticeship programs. Donald Trump has made a ton of promises for infrastructure, hasn't delivered. Donald Trump has appointed Supreme Court justices that have made it right to work as the rule of land for government employees. Mm-hmm. I can keep going. But it is important to know that a lot of our members did support Donald Trump and continue to support Donald Trump. And it's coming from a place of being concerned about their economic futures too. And the decline that union strength has had over the course of the last 40 and 50 years has led to this type of divide. If our membership was working all the time, and if our membership were making bigger and greater wages, they wouldn't turn to a guy like Donald Trump, who likes to rule on hate and likes to rule on divisiveness, because they'd have been comfortable in their positions. Donald Trump used things like immigration to divide us as a union and as a membership. And he did so because he knows that our members are concerned about future work opportunities and that they've seen their good middle-class jobs going away. But brothers and sisters, it was the wrong turn. It was the wrong turn for this country at the wrong time. We get the chance to fix that right now by electing a person in Joe Biden who is in support of all of the issues that we laid out in front of you tonight. And we really hope that as a union, we come together and we drive that message. There's 1 month till Election Day. We will be doing more of these town halls between now and then. We hope it was informative for everybody tonight to hear from our local leaders like Joe and Terry and JD on the impacts that not only the pandemic has had on them, but how politics impacts them. And we thank Congressman Scott. Absolutely. And we thank Mayor Kenny for joining us tonight. And brothers and sisters, just remember, we're going to fight like hell, but November 3rd, that's a big day in this country. And I really hope that you remember to vote your union values on November 3rd. Thank you all for joining us tonight.
Take care, guys. Appreciate it.